Hey, this is Torrin Walker. If you like Context Media Group, help us to keep telling stories. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. This is the first Wednesday Wisdom episode of 2021. I am Torrin Walker, and I have a very special guest with me today. Jaia Thomas is an LA-based sports and entertainment attorney who represents film producers, television writers, and industry talent, assisting them with intellectual property and transactional matters. Thomas is currently an adjunct professor at UCLA, where she teaches about law in the entertainment industry and is the founder of Diverse Representation, an initiative to increase the exposure and number of African-American agents, attorneys, managers, and publicists who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Jaia, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. I've been wanting to interview for a very long while now, and I'm glad you have made time. You have you have a history in the entertainment industry. What did you observe over your time in the industry that led you to launch Diverse Representation?
Sure, great question. So there are a couple of things that led me to launch Diverse Representation. One was the fact that I am a Black woman lawyer. Throughout my entire career, I've always heard comments from people who have the misconception that to be an effective attorney, you have to be an old white male. And so, that's just always something that I've always heard over the years, like, oh, the best lawyers are Jewish men. And, just kind of these preconceived notions of, the white man's ice is colder. So that's something that's always kind of like stuck with me and bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently over the years, I felt like there were all these increased conversations about diversity in entertainment, but I felt like most of those conversations were focused on the talent, the people we see on screen. And I felt like we weren't having enough conversations about the people behind the screens, the agents, the attorneys, the managers, the publicists, and the executives. And I felt like we really needed to switch the conversation and focus on the people behind the scenes, because honestly, that's really where the power is. And even, recently all these Black actors and actresses, saying they're so like pro-Black and Black be this and Black that. But then it's like, when you look at their teams, it's like their teams are all white. It's like they're saying they're pro-Black, but then their agent is white, their manager's white, their attorney is white. And for me, it was always like, I was just always confused by it, because for me, being pro-Black isn't just tweeting about it. It's like putting your money where your mouth is. And I think that's something we need to do a better job of in terms of just circulating the money within our own communities. And so I decided to start Diverse Representation because I wanted to make sure that we were doing a better job of hiring each other across the board. That Black talent had Black agents and Black attorneys, and that we were really putting our money where our mouth was and, circulating the money within our own in the entertainment industry.
Okay. What kind of response have you gotten from the initiative? Has a positive and negative? Have you gotten a lot of pushback, and have you got a lot of positive response? How's it been?
Yeah, I would say 99.9% of it has definitely been positive. Most people are like, oh my God, this is such a great initiative. Thank you. It's 99% has definitely been positive. And then, there are always a couple of people who are always like, color doesn't matter. I don't see color. Those people are always going to exist. But by and large, it's been very positive.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the relationships that happen within sports management. As you already mentioned, the talent on the field and on the court is overwhelmingly Black, but behind the scenes and in C-suites, the talent and the people who are making the deals are overwhelmingly white males. You've seen a lot of pushback from what happened with the Rich Paul situation with LeBron and that sort of thing. What have you seen as far as like sports agencies creating room and infrastructure for Black agents to make room and feel comfortable? Have you seen any kind of response on that?
Yeah, I would say within the past year, I've seen more agencies, focusing on diversity and making sure that they do have more diversity with regards to the agents who work for their companies. But I think it's also as equally important to focus on the fact that there are a lot more Black agents launching their own companies, And I feel like sometimes we just kind of focus on like these like large white-owned agencies, and sometimes we don't focus enough on like the Black-owned agencies as well. There are a lot of amazing Black-owned agents who have their own companies and their own infrastructures, And I think it's important to focus on them as well and give them their accolades and support them in any way we can. But yeah, from the big agencies, I've definitely seen, more of a focus on diversity, but I'm also seeing a ton of young Black sports agents launching their own companies as well, which I think is key, because I think Black ownership is so important in the grand scheme of things.
Okay. In the wake of George Floyd's death, we've seen an outpouring of public displays of sympathy and commitments to diversity from entertainment companies and sports companies. How much actual movement have you seen from those companies to honor those public statements?
Haven't seen too much. I have seen some, when everything transpired last summer, every company and studio and network was rushing to kind of put out press releases and statements. And by and large, I think the bulk of them just kind of donated money to a lot of different nonprofits focused on social justice and criminal justice reform. But there are some companies and studios and networks who have started to look internally to make some changes. I think it's still too early to tell. Some of the changes that they want to implement still in the very early phases. So I think, that's something we'll have to see 6 months from now or circle back a year from now. I will say a lot more studios and networks are being a lot more transparent with regard to their diversity numbers and how diverse their companies actually are, which I think is a starting point. But I think we still have a long way to go.
Recently, several Black women who worked at tech and entertainment companies who were hired specifically to increase diversity went public how they were allegedly sabotaged by management after being hired specifically to help diversify their companies. What can people who are getting these jobs about diversity and inclusion do to be sure they're not being window dressing with no real power to make change?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are just some key questions that a lot of these professionals have to ask before, they even take these positions, to make sure that they aren't, just being hired to, to have a diversity face plastered, on the company website. So I think it really starts even in the interview process and making sure that they actually have some decision-making power. And I think it's important. One thing that I'm seeing a lot of companies do right now is hire like these diversity, these D&I executives, diversity and inclusion executives, which I think is very important. But I think, some companies think that's where it starts and stops, like, well, we hired this D&I executive, like we're good, but companies really need to hire Black women across the board, not just in D&I positions, but in marketing, in legal, in every single department of the companies, and I think that needs to be a conversation that needs to be had. I think a lot of companies are just like, we have D&I, we're good. But that's really just, at this point, in my opinion, the bare minimum.
Is there a danger of diversity and inclusion programs being used as cover to keep the status quo in place at these companies?
For sure. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies, like I said, have these D&I programs and they think the job is done, and that's it. But for sure, a lot of them are just, there is a danger in just having those programs to keep the status quo, whereas nothing really changes. You don't really have to like dig deep. Some companies think, you're not going to dig much deeper into their company as long as they have like a D&I program and face, like, well, they won't dig too much deeper because look, we have this D&I program. But, once you do start digging deeper, you can see not much has changed. And that's what people have to do. I think it's important for all of us to ask questions, to hold these companies accountable and to dig deeper. Don't just take what everyone says at face value, but ask the hard questions, and hold all these people accountable, for sure.
Do you think there's a fear of a young professional who's coming into the business to make any kind of waves in that way, or they feel they may be intimidated about even asking those questions?
I think now is the perfect time to ask questions, because this is a hot topic, diversity and inclusion right now. So I think now is an opportune time to ask questions, and I would hope no one does feel intimidated to do so. Because honestly, I don't know how long diversity and inclusion is going to be a hot button topic. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be at the forefront of these companies 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And maybe I'm just being pessimistic, but it definitely won't be in the forefront of all these companies' minds in the future. So I think now is the perfect time to ask the questions and not be intimidated and not be worried. Because I think it's something that, companies are being very cognizant about right now, more so than they have been in the past.
Mm-hmm. What's being done to shift the idea of diversity in entertainment from on-camera talent to behind-the-scenes decision-making roles like in representation and production in C-suites? What have you seen?
So baby steps. That's one of the main things I'm doing with diverse representation, making sure that those conversations are being had, and putting on programming to ensure that there is more diversity, at these talent agencies, at these management companies. But it's been a slow movement. There aren't a ton of organizations focused on that right now. But I will say I do expect to see more in 2021. I am hopeful that there will be more in 2021. And with regards to executives, there are some programs coming down the pipeline. Lena Waithe just launched a program to usher in more Black executives. And several other organizations are doing the same. So I think there's a wave coming in 2021. But I will say progress up until now has been fairly slow.
All right. We all know the power of social media to create movements and put light on certain situations. Do you think there's anything that the general public can do to, now that they're being more aware of where their entertainment is coming from and who's signing those checks, to kind of push this conversation? Or is that something that's really focused around the entertainment business itself in the industry?
No, I mean, I think social media is huge. I mean, no studio, no television show, no movie wants to get bad press or, see their name plastered all over social media in a negative light. So I think it is something that can be used by the general public to hold companies and studios accountable. And, I think it's important to, like I said, ask those hard questions, share information, and to hold everyone accountable. So, no, I think social media is great. All the studios, all the shows, all the networks have their eyes on social media. And so I think it's a great platform to utilize.
All right. You mentioned ownership earlier, and that's very important. Do you think there's a possibility of more larger established majority white entertainment firms, entertainment representation firms partnering with independent Black management companies?
I think so. I've definitely seen a shift in the past year with more larger white-owned companies doing that. But I still think we have a ways to go. But yes, I've definitely seen that over the past year. I've definitely seen that happen. But like I said, I would also just love to see more Black-owned companies as well. There aren't a ton of Black-owned talent agencies in this industry. There aren't a ton of Black-owned large entertainment law firms in this industry, and so I would love to see more of those type of companies, launching over the next few years. The thing is, I mean, in sports and entertainment, as Black folks, we make both of those industries so much money, but we don't really see a lot of that money. We make the industries a lot of money, but a lot of that money goes right back to white folks. So.
Do you think that there's more awareness amongst athletes about who's representing them, and do you see a little bit more activism among athletes about who's representing them to find people that look like them?
Baby steps. I think LeBron set the tone. Because LeBron has a Black agent, a Black attorney, a Black manager, and I think he is the poster child for, Black representation in the sports industry. There aren't a ton of LeBrons out here who have all Black teams or majority Black teams. But I think agents like Rich Paul are definitely, becoming much bigger. And, even this past like NBA, even the past like recent NFL and NBA, I'm totally blanking right now, but with the recent class of NBA players who just got drafted, sorry, I meant draft, NFL draft, NBA draft, there were a lot more Black agents who represented players in these recent drafts than in the past. So I think there is some progress, but like I said, I think we still have a ways to go. And that agency piece is only one piece of the puzzle, so I think more players are considering Black agents, but like I said, that's just one piece of the puzzle. You got to think about the accountants, the attorneys, the managers, the publicists, the assistants. It's like a huge operation here. And I think there's some progress being made on the agent side, but I think there's still a long way to go on this other side.
All right. What do you see as the future of diversity and inclusion in entertainment management and in sports management?
The future. I don't know. That's a great question. I think it's going to continue to get better. Like I don't, like I said, I don't know how long this topic is going to be like the it topic, but I do think changes are going to be made over the next few years. So I am optimistic. I do hope to see and plan to see more opportunities for Black folks in these industries, and yeah, I'm optimistic that we're going to see some changes. I don't know how drastic the changes are going to be, but I'm optimistic.
All right. And what's next for diverse representation in Jaia Thomas?
For next for diverse representation is a great question. So we are in our third year this year. So we're still a very new company, but this is our third year. And a couple of days ago on January 1st, we launched a new program called the Black Entertainment Executives Pipeline Program. We're partnering with several studios and networks to usher in more Black executives in television and film. Over 90% of senior executives in television and film are white. So we are working to change that number through this pipeline program, which we're partnering with Color of Change as well. They're the sponsor of this program. We're going to be accepting 6 individuals who are going to be going through an entire training program to learn how to become executives in television and film. And it's going to be a 4-month-long program. So this is our first year launching it. Hopefully it goes well. But that is a very big program for us that we just launched January 1st. This year we have a lot of other programs in the works. We're going to be doing a very big pitch competition in the spring. We're going to give Black content creators an opportunity to pitch their television show ideas and film ideas to networks and studios, because that's another issue, making sure that there is more Black content in television and film. So we are partnering with some studios and networks to do that for Black content creators. We are also going to be hosting a big job fair in the summer focused on Black folks who want to get into the entertainment industry. So we are going to be doing that in the summer as well. And we just have a lot of other programs and partnerships that we're going to be announcing throughout the year. We have a job board on our site. So, you know, Black folks looking for jobs in sports and entertainment, we do have a job board. We do have a portal that we just recently launched. And the portal, if you're talent looking for Black representation, you can submit yourself through our portal. And on the back end, we have Black agents, attorneys, managers, and publicists reviewing all the submissions and reaching out to folks who they're interested in representing. So we have a lot going on. And yeah, those are just some of the programs for 2021. And for me, work is next for me. I'm still a full-time lawyer. So in addition to running diverse representation, I still have a full slate of clients, and I'm still a full-time sports and entertainment attorney. So I have a lot of things in the pipeline for my clients this year. And also teaching at UCLA. I'm launching introducing a new seminar this year focused on diversity in entertainment, teaching students how to create their own diversity programs. So excited to be doing that starting in February. And yeah, that's the main stuff.
All right. Jaia Thomas, entertainment attorney, founder of Diverse Representation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.